Hello, well, this is JCJ, your coach of the North Melbourne Kangaskhans, and welcome to the TBA draft breakdown for Season 3. TBA is a league run by my good friend TRT, as well as a series of other people such as Kirito, Baba, KJ, Jarden, and Critic, who's the founder. I joined this league in Season 1 about roughly a year ago-ish, and have participated actively in this league ever since. This is my third consecutive season in Season 3 majors, after just missing finals in Season 2 majors and making semi-finals in Season 1 gold. Season 3 is comprised of 20 coaches for majors and minors. I had overall pick 7 of the draft, which started about 13 hours ago. And I have made my grace period transactions, and I am ready to go over my draft. And we'll kickstart with my first pick, which was Mega Diancie. This draft is in DLC format, so all of the DLC moves that are coming out in June are they're sort of like allowed for this league, which was part of, or pretty much all of why I decided to draft Mega Diancie. Mega Diancie is an amazing Pokemon. Base 160 attack and special attack, base 110 defenses and speed. Not much HP, but we can't be perfect. It's all around a fantastic Pokemon with an amazing ability that blocks certain status moves and bounces them back to the user. This is mostly status like Toxic and Thunder Wave, and also hazard control like Stealth Rocks and Spikes. Speaking of, this Pokemon gets its own Stealth Rocks, as well as some fantastic dual stabs such as Diamond Storm, Moonblast, Power Gem, and it gets Play Rough in this since it's DLC. So this Pokemon has both physical and special movesets, such as Diamond Storm, Play Rough, and Body Press, which are viable movesets, as well as its typical special movesets, such as with Moonblast. It's got coverage like Earth Power, Psychic, and Psyshock, Power Gem, and it gets Calm Mind for setup, which raises its attack and special attack. It also gets Explosion if I want to run a Suicide Lead. It gets Heal Bell for support, and it also gets Dual Screens for support, even though it can't hold the Light Clay, that's alright. Rock Polish for setup, Substitute, Toxic, and a bunch of other hidden tech down there. Overall, it was my first round pick. TRT picked it for me because I was still sleeping. But this is overall a fantastic Pokemon with an amazing dual typing in Rock Fairy. Its one standout weakness being Steel, but we covered that nicely, I think. The next Pokemon we got, which TRT also got for us, was Scolipede. So Scolipede is my Tier 2 pick. Its stats are pretty good. It's got base 100 attack, base 112 speed, so it's very fast, and it's not the bulkiest thing in the world, but it can take a hit if I need it to. It's a poison bug type, and it's got a lot of good coverage, such as Throat Chop, Super Power, Pursuit, if I want to trap things, Aqua Tail, Earthquake. But the real gem is its ability speed boost. Every turn, its speed stat is raised by 1, and I have used this thing before, and it is an absolute monster. I have it currently in EDL, and it's the kill leader at the moment with 14 kills and 2 deaths from 4 games. It can hold any item, usually Focus Sash or Life Orb, since there's no Z crystals. It also gets Spikes and Toxic Spikes, which can be very useful for whittling down teams. It's my only Spike setter, spikes and toxic spike setter, which is alright because I really don't use them that often, but it is an option if I ever need it. It also gets baton pass. Now in this league, I'm not allowed to baton pass stat boosts, I believe, but I am allowed to baton pass substitute. So I could run a defensive poison point set, could be support, maybe spikes, T-spikes, substitute, baton pass, completely support, and I can pass this into Diancie, and Diancie can set up with Calm Mind or even a Rock Polish and sweep teams. The next pick I decided to get was Umbreon, and I got this for one particular reason. I had Umbreon in TBA Season 1, and it won me the first round of finals against Critic. Shuckleberry Umbreon was able to live close combat with 50%, and foul play is mega delayed, which was his only way to deal with it. I've used this thing in the past. Everyone in the league knows that I have, and it is just an absolute monster. Its defenses are insane. 95 HP, 110 defense, 130 special defense. It's got a beautiful ability called Synchronize, which means that if it gets poisoned, paralyzed, or burnt, or put to sleep, or anything, the Pokemon who sent it also gets that status. So it can only really be poisoned by poison or steel types, unless they can afford to run the cleric option. This Pokemon is fantastic. It gets Wish, Protect, Foul Play, Heal Bell is its standard set. This can also be swapped for Toxic or Baton Pass. It also gets dual screens in Reflect and Light Screen, or it doesn't get Light Screen, but it gets Reflect. With White Clay could be useful as the user turns, the Reflect lasts 8 instead of 5, which can allow me to set up. Overall, it's a fantastic pick. It's an amazing Wish Passer, and I really value a Wish Passer in a draft league, especially in one like this where there's 20 coaches in majors, all of which I'm competing against. But I'll explain more of that later. My next pick was Silvally. Fairly decent. Good base stats, 95 across the board. Lots of good coverage, lots of good moves. But the real beauty of this is the Arceus system. It can change its type to match its held memory, and I can run a memory of any type that I want, even fairy. So if there is a particular Pokemon that I struggle against, or if there's a particular type that I'm weak to, which this team isn't really, then what Silvally can do is it can run that type and can become a defensive check to that particular Pokemon or that particular type, which really, really helps me out defensively. It also gets Defog, which helps me with hazard control, since my team doesn't have the best hazard control. It also gets this move Parting Shot, which lowers the attacks of the opponent and allows me to switch as a momentum. This can get me to freely into Scolipede, where I can maybe Swords Dance and then clean up with Speed Boost, or I can get it into Mega Diancie, get a Calm Mind up, get a Rock Polish up, and Body Teams. My next pick wasn't actually Swampert. It was initially, but I dropped it during the grace period after the draft was over for Flygon. The reason I did this was Flygon gives me Levitate, which gives me a ground immunity, which I'll get to later. It's got decent stats, base 100 attack, base 100 speed, 80 for the rest of its stats. It's got some good moves, some good coverage on both the physical and special side. It's got Roost for recovery, Defog as well. So this is another defogger that I can use. It also gets Dragon Dance for setup, which raises its attack and speed. So I can run Dragon Dance, Earthquake, and Earthquake is one of the most spammable moves in the game, as well as Brave Bird in close combat, in my opinion. And this can allow me to sweep through teams, and with it also gets moves like First Impression, which it gets from Generation 8. It also gets a bunch of coverage like Fire Punch, Power Up Punch, which can boost its attack. It gets Quick Attack for priority, Rock Slide or Stone Edge, Superpower, Thunder Punch. It also gets a U-turn for momentum, so I can run a Scarf set. I could run Scarf Flygon for momentum. I can run Silvally for momentum. I can run Scolipede or Umbreon for momentum if I want to. There's a lot of momentum on this team, which is really useful for getting in Pokemon like Deantey, Pokemon like Scolipede, Pokemon like Flygon to be able to set up and sweep teams. At this point, I realized that I had a few big weaknesses. So my next two picks really patched that up for me, and they also allowed me to capitalize on hazard control. I had Swampert at this point, which was a Stealth Rocker, not a Defogger. So I only had one Rocker, which was pretty good. I had a Spike Setter, T-Spike Setter. I only had one Defogger because I didn't have Flygon at that point. What I decided to do is I decided to get Heatran since I still had my Tier 1 pick. Heatran is amazing. Base 91 HP, 90 attack, 77 speed, which is not that bad. It also has 106 defenses and 130 special attack, which you are not to underestimate. It hits really hard. It gets rocks, which is fantastic. It's got an amazing dual typing in Fire and Steel. It's 2 times weak to ground, but that's why we have Levitate. The thing with Heatran is that you need ground resists and ground immunities, and Flygon granted me that. And so did my next pick. My next 2 picks, actually, I think. But Silvally can also become a ground resist if I run Flying Memory, which can make it immune, or I can run a Grass Memory or a Bug Memory, which also makes me resist ground attacks, which can benefit Silvally a lot. It gets a lot of great moves as well as its dual stab. It gets Magna Storm, which traps and damages a target for 4 to 5 turns. It's got a bit of it's a bit inaccurate, but if I ever want to take the risk, it can do that. It also gets Will-O-Wisp and Toxic to status. It gets Taunt to stop other people setting up their Stealth Rocks. It gets Rest to recover itself. It gets a bunch of coverage like Earth Power and Earthquake, Dragon Pulse, Dark Pulse. It gets Nature Power if I ever want to run Heat like that. Stone Edge and Rock Slide for a physical set. But the thing is, it's got such a great special attack and such a great speed stat that I could run a Scarf set if I wanted to. I can run Scarfed Eruption, which does less power as the user's HP decreases. Base 150 move, 100% accuracy. So if I'm at max HP, that's going to do a lot of damage with a Scarf set. Hidden Power is not allowed in this league, but it also gets Solar Beam if I want to run a Power Herd Solar Beam set. If there's a bulky water type that I'm particularly afraid of, I can run Power Herd Solar Beam, which means that Solar Beam only hits. It doesn't have to charge, so it's like there's sunlight. This Pokemon overall allowed me to patch up a bunch of weaknesses that I had. It was my Tier 1 pick because there weren't many left that I was particularly interested in. There was only one other one that I was looking at, but after I decided on what my other pick was, my next pick, I opted out of that for one big reason. And my next pick is Celebi. Celebi is similar to Silvally. It's got base 100 stats across the board being a Pixie Pokemon. It gets a lot of great moves. It gets Baton Pass, it gets Stealth Rocks, so it becomes another Stealth Rocker. It gets Reflect, it gets Light Screen, it gets U-Turn, it gets Trick Room, Thunder Wave, Toxic, so I can mess with people there. It gets Synthesis and Recover for recovery. It gets Parrot's Song in case I ever want to force an opponent out. Healing Wish could be really useful in helping out recovering the team, but it also gets a bunch of coverage in Earth Power, Aura Sphere, Shadow Ball, Signal Beam. It gets Sucker Punch if I ever want to run a physical set, which is viable since it's got base 100 attack. U-Turn for momentum. Detect is not a bad option as well. Facade in case I get status, and Natural Cure when I switch out can remove that status as well. So if I get burnt or if I get toxic, I can decide and then I can U-turn out and that toxic will go away. This usually runs leftovers, but I can run Scarf on this as well. Scarf U-turn for momentum can really be helpful. I have a lot of designated Scarfers on this team, which can make it really difficult to predict what Scarf I bring, if I bring Scarf at all against my opponent. But I'm most likely going to run this special attack just because I have a lot of physical attackers, as you'll see by my next 2 picks. But generally speaking, this Pokemon just sets up Stealth Rocks and switches out. It's 4 times weak to U-turn, but between Celebi and Heatran, a lot of my weaknesses were patched up and balanced. My team was very balanced going into the last 4 picks, and I was very happy at this point. And I was even happier when I got Staraptor. Staraptor has an amazing attack stat, an amazing speed stat in base 100. It's typically Scarf, but I can run Builded. I can also run Silk Scarf or Sky Plate to boost its Dual Stab normal flying. It gets a great ability in Intimidate, which drops the opponent's attack, but it also gets Reckless, where the recoil where Pokemon attacks with the recoil damage get boosted. And this is fantastic because this Pokemon gets amazing moves like Brave Bird and Double Edge. Both of them are base 120 power. They're both physical, both 100% accurate. They both do recoil damage, and these both do a lot of damage to the opponent. It also gets moves like Close Combat. And Close Combat is amazing because what it does is the #1 switch in to most Brave Bird spam is rock types or steel types. And rock types and steel types in particular resist flying and normal moves. But Close Combat is a fighting type move. It's a really powerful fighting type move at base 120, very spammable, and what it does is it breaks through those types, which allows Staraptor, which means there are less switch-ins to Staraptor. It also gets some amazing other moves like Agility for setup, which I've used before. It gets Defog, Endeavor in case its HP gets too low. It gets Quick Attack for priority. It gets Pursuit if I want to trap. It gets Roost for recovery so it can heal itself. U-turn for more momentum. It gets Tailwind to boost the speed of my team, which can be very, very useful, especially with how fast it is. It's likely that I can get it up, but it's typically run offensive with Brave Bird, some combination of Brave Bird, Double Edge, Close Combat, U-turn, sometimes Roost, sometimes Quick Attack, sometimes Agility if I ever want to set up, typically with a Choice Band or a Choice Scarf, because even with a Choice Scarf it still hits really hard. And speaking of mons that still hit really hard, the Simeon, my next pick. The Simeon has pretty similar stats to Staraptor. Base 120 attack, base 80 speed, so it's a really good designated Scarfer. But unlike Staraptor, it's a lot bulkier and it can take hits. So it can come in on a hit and it can switch back out again. It gets U-turn for more momentum, which is something that I'm now realizing I have a lot of on this team. But it gets Close Combat. It gets Stab Close Combat, so it's boosted. But it also gets a lot of other moves. It gets Acrobatics in case I don't want to run an item. I can trick my opponent. I can run Earthquake, Gunk Shot, Knock Off, which is fantastic, Iron Head, Rock Slide, Seed Bomb. It gets a lot of great coverage. I can get Aerial Ace if I do want to run an item. So that's some flying moves. It also gets Bulk Up if I want to run Setup, but typically with this Pokemon's speed and how frail it is, particularly on the special side, where Psychic types usually hit, I might run Bulk Up, but I probably won't. But what this does for me, so what you've noticed so far is that I've got a few defoggers, but none of them are really that great aside from Silvally. This Pokemon gets the ability called Defiant. So what Defog does is it drops the evasiveness of your opponent as well as removing hazard control. And Defiant means that this Pokemon's attack is raised by 2, so it's like getting a Swords Dance boost for each of its stats lowered. So if I switch in on a Defog, I get a +2 boost in attack. If I have a Scarf set with +2 attack, I can just click Close Combat and body teams if they don't have a Ghost type up. And between and with Umbreon on the field, it's unlikely that Ghost will show up. I kind of struggle a little bit against Ghost types, but Umbreon comes in on Ghost types 100% of the time and takes them out with foul play, stalls them out with Toxic, whatever. My next pick is Manectric. I realized at this point that I needed some special attack. I needed an electric type, and Manectric was sitting there, ripe for the plucking. So I picked it up. It's base 105 speed, base 105 special attack, so it can hit hard and it's really fast. It's got Volt Switch, which is even more momentum, as well as great stab in Thunderbolt, because Thunderbolt's also very spammable. It's got Switcheroo, in case I want to trick a choice item onto a defensive Pokemon, which can essentially nullify it for the game. And with its base speed, it outspeeds a lot of things anyway. I can run Discharge to paralyze stuff. I can run Flamethrower and Overheat as coverage, which is really useful against Steel types. I've got Signal Beam for more coverage. I've got Toxic Thunder Wave if I ever want to neutralize something. I've got Roar to force Pokemon out. Quick Attack as more priority. It's got Hyper Voice as well, which is some normal type coverage in case I ever need it. It's also got a few physical moves in case I ever want to run a physical set, which is a possibility, but unlikely as its physical attack is not that great. It's just 75. It's usable, but it's not the best. But it could be useful to throw my opponents off guard. The last Pokemon that I picked up is Piplup, and I know this is an NFE Pokemon, but it actually really fits my team very well. I was actually initially going to get Empoleon, but when I realized that was sniped when I got Silvally, that had already gone by the time I got Umbreon, I think. I think definitely by the time I got Silvally, because that's when I looked. But I realized Empoleon had gone, but which would have fit my team perfectly. But Piplup is a good substitute. It gets Stealth Rocks and it gets Defog, which I desperately need on my team. It also gets Scald, which can burn the opponent, Ice Beam for coverage, Toxic, and that's typically what it would run each week. Some combination of Toxic, Scald, Defog, Rocks, Ice Beam, something like that. But it gets a bunch of other moves in case I ever want to run some heat. It gets Yawn, it gets Whirlpool. I could Whirlpool Toxic. I could Trap Kill, but because it's an FE mon, I can run EVOI. So what that does is it boosts its defense and it boosts its special defense by 1.5, which makes this thing exceptionally bulky. And this is my designated bulky water type. It's not ideal, but it's a 20-man draft, and a lot of the bulky waters have gone or were too expensive for me at this point, or by the time I got Staraptor. So this was really the best option that was left. And with the Stealth Rock option and with Defog options, it's actually a really value pick for me. Base 50 speed as well. It's my slowest Pokemon, but it's an important speed tier to cover. But this is essentially going to be my bulky water for the season. We're going to try it out. We're going to see how it goes. But I can make trades if I want to. Designated bulky water since I dropped Swampert. We're going to go to the matchup doc. But this is what I think my week 1 matchup is going to be. But we'll get to that. But essentially, this is my team. So we've got so we've got their abilities, but we've got their weaknesses. So this is what I've been looking at when I was drafting. So we do have a bit of a ground weakness, as you can see here, but with Levitate, that's sort of 2 immunities. But generally speaking, our weaknesses are pretty covered. We've got 4 possible stealth lockers: Priplop, Celebi, Mega Diancie, and Heatran. We got a few defoggers. We got Flygon, Silvally, Staraptor, and Prinplop. Staraptor probably won't run defog ever, but it's an option. Scolipede and for T-Spikes and Spikes. But this is a fast team. We've got base 112, base 110, base 105, and we've got 3 Pokemon at base 100. Very fast team, averaging at 90. But we can make this work. We've filled our speed tiers pretty well, I think. And I think we'll do just fine this season. Don't worry about this here, because Critic is changing the schedule since some of us saw it early, including myself. In fact, I'll just delete it now. But this is also the document that we'll be using when we're doing our team builder, which is something that I'm going to cover on this channel. This is the season document. So this is my team. This is my team page. You can see my coach name, my showdown, team name, abbreviation, time zone, all the things. My schedule will appear here, and this will be the record of each of my weeks and my finals run if I make it. But we call it playoffs because it's predominantly American. So this is it. This is my team. I'm in this league with 20 other coaches, including some good mates of mine, Clay, TRT. But we're going to be going over this. This is going to be a 9-week league. So plus finals, I'm going to be doing a team builder and a match, either live or post game, depending on if I get around to recording or not. But assume for now that it's going to be recorded. But I'll just quickly go over the rules before I finish this off. So this is it's a standard OU. Sleep clause, evasion clause, moody clause, all the things. All Pokemon are level 100. Dry pass, I can't pass stats. Baton passing with substitute is allowed. It's a DLC league, and the document with DLC moves will be available in the link below. So you can see what gets what, because it is different. It's a new meta, sort of. Cut moves also are not allowed. The link for that will be below as well. Trapping moves are banned, but trapping, except for Magnet Pull, but trapping abilities are banned except for Magnet Pull, but trapping moves are allowed, like Whirlpool. So I can do that if I ever want to. There's no Omni Boost. Sorry, there is Omni Boost, but we don't have to worry about that at the moment. I don't think anyone drafted Phalanx, but I think Tomo got picked up late. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Everyone is 11 Pokemon team, and we bring 6 Pokemon to battle each week. The draft was today. It was a fast draft that lasted about 6 hours, where all 20 coaches picked 11 Pokemon. So in total, that's 220 picks. There was a banned list, but hidden abilities are allowed. So Sandrush, Dracovish, Grassy Surge, Rillaboom, those are things. There are also some more complex bans, like Blaziken's only Blaze, not Speed Boost. Mega Blastoise doesn't have Shell Smash. Mega Kangaskhan doesn't have Seismic Toss, etc. But generally speaking, that's the gist of it. I'll let you guys know who I'm playing when I do the team builder each week, and we will get right on into it as soon as we can. I believe the week 1 is starting next week because the Miners League finished. They finished I think it was a few hours after us, but also stay tuned because at the moment we are in week 9 of EDL Season 3 and PBL Season 6, and the new seasons for both of those when they come out, EDL Season 3 is a new one coming, and PBL Season 7, I will be doing content for one of or both of those leagues. So make sure you stay tuned for that when that comes out, but I'll keep you guys updated on what's going on with that behind the scenes. But I'm letting you guys know now I am in the playoff race for both of them. In EDL, I am currently 4-4 with a +7 differential, and TBL, I think I'm 5-4 with a +4 or 5 differential, something like that. So I'm right up in there. Excuse me, and I'll keep you guys posted. I might do content on that for finals if I make it for each of them. But yeah, I'll let you guys know what's going on. So that's all for me for my first video, and I am signing off for now. See you in the next one.